I think map design is one of the most important parts of World of Warships. It allows ships of lower tiers to even compete with ships 2 tiers higher. Here I'm playing in a Flandre, which is admittedly a very good tier 8, against tier 10, and I'm going to have an excellent game. And it really revolves around playing with these islands in the south here. This map can have decent islands. I don't think the map design is perfect in World of Warships. In fact, I think it's far from it. Honestly, most of the time, the maps lead to very passive games. And, well, at least in this one, the enemy team is going to push, mostly because we don't have a lot of forces in the south. And since I'm such a fast ship, I can actually push this southern flank before even their cruisers are able to get into position down here. The Baltimore is on his way, but certainly not here yet. And of course, Flandre has the 380mm guns that are French and have really good penetration. They don't have the best dispersion or reload, but the pen is good enough to deal with these tier 10 battleships for sure. So pushing through here is certainly a bit of a risk, but since I'm so quick, I can get here before I get spotted out by the destroyers as I'm crossing this channel. And once I do get spotted down here, I know that this Preussen, this Montana, they're going to be thinking they have an easy kill. And because of that, I'm going to play into these islands and force them to fight me 1 versus 1. This Baltimore is in a 1v1 against me right now. My secondaries are going to light them up. If you didn't know, Flandre has some of the best secondaries in the entire game, not even just for tier 8. It's not down to their accuracy, it's just down to how many there are. It's kind of ridiculous. It's nearly Schlieffen level. Of course, they don't have the pen of Schlieffen, so they are a little more reliant on fires. But against lower tiers, they do some serious work. And I really enjoy the Flandre. For the speed, for the secondaries, it's a fun overall tier 8. But oftentimes these brawly, secondary-focused ships can be pretty rough to play into tier 10. And this game really worked out quite well for me. The Preussen has now committed to the south of these islands here, and since the Montana and Alaska are so far away, I am actually able to push into the cap and not be spotted. That's what we're going to do here. We've baited a couple of the enemy team into playing this southern point, and we really have none of our ships committed here, which means they're basically out of the battle for probably a couple minutes or so. And this is really, really useful, since having a bit of an advantage, they've taken out 2 of our ships already. We need to do a good job of isolating the enemy ships and taking good fights. So as I'm pushing through the middle here, I know I'm completely safe from the Preussen because I'm using these islands. I'm positioning my ship in advantageous ways around the islands based on where the enemy team are playing. I know I'm broadside to the Montana, but I do believe he fired a little bit recently, so I can get myself angled around this island before he's able to fire again. And this is the real strength of the Flandre. This is the strength of the tier 8 ships against tier 10s. They have a little better concealment than the tier 10 battleships, and assuming there's some decent islands to play around, there's some pretty decent games to be had in a tier 8 into tier 10. It's just not easy. You can't make the bold, aggressive in the open play. You kind of have to sneak around a little bit. And, well, this Baltimore finally does take a citadel from us. He's been broadside quite a bit. And finally we do get our first citadel. You'll notice we've really not taken much damage at all, while dealing some pretty decent damage to the enemy team. 50,000 damage is alright starting for a tier 8 battleship, especially with how much HP we've saved at this point. Most tier 8s, I think, at least for the battleships, for me, probably are in that 80 to 100k range, so we're getting close to that already. And this game has just started. Montana going broadside because it's a tier 8. What's the worst that could happen? Well, 3 full pens and a citadel can happen because it has these 380mm guns. And that's what's really so nice about a ship like the Flandre. It's good in close quarters, and it's okay enough at longer ranges. Having speed, having some decent concealment allows me to play these islands much more efficiently than I could in something like a Massachusetts. So it's not like every single tier 8 is going to do well, but there's other things I could do in a Massachusetts to play around these islands as well. That ship's a little bit tankier down to its faster reloading heal, so I could play with that and maybe take a more extended fight in a 1v1 position rather than dipping and ducking around some of these islands here. And I'm taking not quite a 1v1, but pretty close to it with a Preussen, who had quite a bit of health. Yes, I'm getting some help from the carrier, but against a Preussen, a French battleship really suffers. Those secondaries all pen 32mm of armor, and that's the only armor I have. And of course, the reasonably accurate 457 guns can definitely hurt. However, he's going to dump most of his shells into our belt armor. And this is one of the tricks or gimmicks of the French battleships. Their belt armor is insane. It's fully turtle-backed, multiple layers, and it's that French black hole armor where there's just random shatters for seemingly no reason. And just like that, 100k damage, we've dealt with a tier 10 battleship with the help of our team, and we still have enough HP to go pushing in and flanking the enemy Montana again. We're using these islands to try and reposition well in stealth and catching people off guard. That's what it really comes down to, and I could do this in a cruiser or a destroyer as well. I would just be trying to use the islands in a little different ways, trying to farm over them, or trying to sneak around them to get some torpedo salvos off, like our Outplay is going to do on this Montana. And in fact, that is going to be the Montana going down, and our Outplay actually switches to AP and is going to absolutely crush this Baltimore before I can even reload. So 125,000 damage, no kills yet, but we've done an excellent job of defeating the enemy in the south here. And we really didn't have a lot of teammates in the south to really back us up. And that's the real power of playing around some of these islands. We've dealt with a lot of the higher tier ships on the enemy team with some of our lower tier ones. There's a lot of tier 9s, myself in a tier 8, and of course the carrier helping us a little bit there near towards the end. But that really can turn a game into our favor. As a tier 8 doing that much work against the enemy tier 10s, there's so much less pressure on our tier 10s to make a huge play and carry the game, since the enemy tier 10s actually got dealt with by a ship 2 tiers lower. This certainly can't happen every game, though I'm not saying it does, but I did want to show you this game because islands are really, really useful, and learning to play around them, playing to your ship's strengths, can even work in a double up tier game. That's how good and strong islands are, and the power of positioning your ship in a advantageous way. And of course, this wouldn't have worked if most of the enemy team had gone south and really committed hard. I couldn't have made the kind of aggressive, risky plays I did, like moving through the cap. So it really comes down to reading the enemy team's deployment, what your ship's good at, what the enemy ships you're going to be fighting are good at, and then trying to get yourself in the best place possible to deal with those enemy ships. And as we fast forward the ending here, the gearing actually gets caught by us because we're going around 35 knots. We're a very fast battleship, and that is going to be our second kill and even a Confederate on the game. 164,000 damage into tier 10. I'd say that's a pretty good result. Again, not all tier 8s, and certainly not all of my games are going to look like this against tier 10, but it's nice for myself to see that it is possible for these tier 8s to do some serious work into this tier 10 matchmaker. And some of that comes down to playing around islands and using the maps efficiently. And that's why I really do hope Wargaming puts a lot of effort into map design in the future, maybe even changing out and redesigning some of the current maps in the game to give a few more options for ships to push using islands, playing around islands in concealment, allowing ships to push in without being fully detected and in the open the entire time. And maybe the game would get a little bit more interesting, less passive, less campy. That's my hope. I'm not sure it's going to happen though. As for the build, this is what it looks like on the Flandre right now. I will probably take myself an adrenaline rush as I get myself into a 21-point commander. For now though, you'll notice I'm actually not running fire prevention. I do think I need the emergency repair expert. And this is actually an older captain. You'll notice I'm still using concealment. I haven't played Flandre for a while. As my first game in quite some time. I probably would run fire prevention and emergency repair expert. The extra concealment though did work out quite well in that game, and if I'm playing a hit and run style tactics where I'm not committing myself to a fight where fire prevention would certainly save me from a lot of fire damage, maybe this build would work out. But I can't know that I'm going to play a hit and run kind of game because not all the maps work like this one. So running fire prevention is probably a little bit better. As for the upgrades, pretty simple. I am running secondary mod. I do enjoy the full secondary build Flandre. Check out some of my other videos. They're a little older at this point, a few months old, to show the insane power of these secondaries. It's Flandre is a very good tier 8 battleship. Even if it's not really the most standard brawly battleship, it kind of muscles its way through with a tier 9 hull, insane amount of secondaries, and just okay main guns. But it's a pretty fun ship, and I really enjoyed playing it in this game. So let me know in the comments below what maps you would like to see Wargaming redesign, what kind of things you'd like them to consider. I'd certainly love them to do a better job with islands and allowing people to push in a little bit more. But that's all for me. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.